Well, Techthusiasts, another WWDC event from Apple has come and gone. The keynote was this week. tvOS actually got talked about. We had a section, we had some slides. So let's talk about the features, let's talk about what was announced, let's talk about what wasn't announced. So we go, so it goes. Yet again, another year, no announcement, no fanfare for high bitrate, high video streaming, lossless audio, high bitrate audio streaming. So we wait with bated breath, maybe another year, maybe next year, who knows if it'll ever happen. In the meantime, hold on to those Kaleidoscapes. Did I mention I'm a dealer? Hey, if you're interested in one, you're tired of waiting for Apple to stream high bitrate lossless audio, just buy the Kaleidoscape already. Contact me, I'll help you out. But that aside, let's talk about what they did announce. Number one, we have Insight coming. So Insight looks a lot basically like Amazon X-Ray, which I think is a pretty cool feature actually. In my opinion, to use a movie watching, build my library, and use their hardware, use their apps to enjoy my library, enjoy my movies, I think the more intuitive, informational, and kind of interactive features that you can build around that, the better off the whole platform is. So Insight basically lets you pull up the on-screen overlay while you're watching a movie. It lets you get real-time information about what you're watching. Actors, and I really like how they emphasized you can see both the actor name, their portrait, and their character name, so you can kind of match. It's all totally dynamic, showing information scene by scene, basically all the metadata about what's happening in the content that you're watching. If you're ever wondering, you swear that you saw that actor, you recognize them from another show, another movie, or maybe the significant other does, and you're debating where it was, hey, pull up the Insight, check it out. I love the feature. It's definitely a little bit of a takeoff on Amazon X-Ray. I think Amazon X-Ray works pretty well in its own right. Cool to have an equivalent feature on Apple TV and the Apple TV app. Number two, we have the feature for dialogue enhancement. Now, I think it was actually last year when this first came to the Apple TV platform, basically a way to do some audio processing to emphasize voices in the soundtrack at certain periods of time, maybe when we're watching things. The voices, the dialogue can get drowned out by background noise, background music, and other sound that's part of the soundtrack to the film. So turn on Dialog Enhancer, boom. Now you have some extra emphasis on the things being said. Maybe it's useful for you if you're like me and you've got some aging ears. Maybe it's useful depending on your watching conditions. Maybe you're watching not in a dedicated home theater room, but in an open living room space. Maybe it's later in the evening. You want to kind of turn things up a little bit, but not that much, and you want to put that little extra emphasis on the dialogue. But the thing about the feature from when it was originally announced is it was specific to Apple like HomePod hardware. It didn't work in general. Now Dialog Enhancer basically works with everything. Not just your HomePod, but if you're using the TV's built-in speakers or essentially anything that is connected via HDMI, the audio processing will be done in the Apple TV itself, and that audio signal will just pass along via the HDMI output to whatever the Apple TV is connected to. Number three, I think, is a pretty cool little usability enhancement. I've been singing the praises of the Apple TV platform for a long time, and by virtue of being able to pick up your Apple TV remote, and when you're watching a piece of content, you missed a piece of dialogue, you missed something specifically that was said, you engage the voice assistant, you say, hey, S lady, what did they say? The Apple TV jumps back a period of time. It automatically turns the subtitles on. It'll replay that little bit of content. Now you can listen to it again, but also get the clarification by seeing the subtitles presented to you. And after you reach the point that you skipped back from, essentially the subtitles will automatically turn off. Now you don't even have to use the voice assistant. Just by virtue of skipping back, subtitles will automatically engage. And I presume that they will shut off as the content plays forward past the skip back point. I am curious to try this out, specifically what happens if I skip back like a minute? Are subtitles engaged for that whole period of time? What happens if I skip back like 30 seconds and then I skip forward? Does it know when I pass the playback moment and they turn back on? So from a software, I'm getting in my software usability design space here. I think there's a lot of edge cases and caveats to maybe when the subtitles should come on and when they should come off, and I'm curious by what decision tree they decided to implement all of that. But ultimately, I think this is a useful feature. It's definitely better to be able to just skip and read rather than to have to bother essentially with the voice assistant. So a little bit of extra usability to an already essentially available and incredibly useful feature. Thumbs up for that. a nice quality of life enhancement to tvOS. For the subtitle thing, I've also read some indication that subtitles will be generated when the selected language of the device doesn't match exactly. I'm not entirely sure what that means either. This is definitely a feature that I'm kind of curious to play with and try some of the ins and outs. And I wonder actually if some of that AI and Apple intelligence is perhaps going to get mixed in with the subtitling feature a little bit as well. Now, the darling of the ball, I think the meat of the tvOS announcements out of WWDC, especially for projection-based home theater enthusiasts, is the mention of a 21:9 display mode for the Apple TV. I've made the content about it. I've shown it off in my own theater. I have a scope screen down there. It's 163 inches. And I've been wanting, a lot of us for a long time, have been wanting to be able to put the Apple TV in a scope extra widescreen mode. Now, when I've talked about that in the past and wanted that essentially as a request, I really wanted actually more for the menus than I am necessarily about the content, because the way that extra wide content plays in a projection-based home theater when you're zooming up with lens memories, or you have something like a MadVR or a Lumigen, we really don't need necessarily Apple to do anything in the operating system for the content that's playing. It just needs to play in its letterbox essentially with the black bars above and below, and we can take care of the rest already in our systems for scope screens. It's really the menus that matter. But in the video, in the announcement, and in most of the information that I've seen since, which is essentially like this, almost a little bit of a repeat of what Apple said in the announcement without being able to get into really some new deep technical insight about it, there wasn't any mention that I found about menus. It's talking about content. And so I'm really curious exactly how this one is going to work. Rest assured that as soon as I have 21:9 aspect ratio mode available on my Apple TVs, you will see a Techthusiasm hands-on home theater video demo checking out the feature and making sure it works. Making sure that it works the way that it's supposed to. Now, I never heard the word anamorphic talked about with regards to any of this. I could see that possibly being part of it. Are they going to go all the way to like doing some kind of extra support for people that have lenses? But again, in a lot of cases, folks have the video processors. So I'm really not sure what they can do. All they really needed to tell us was 21:9 menus. And I think we would have like fallen out of our chairs and applauded. But that's not what they said. And so I'm really, really eager, again, to get my hands on that specific feature, test it out, and see exactly what it does. The writings that I've seen referencing this talk about the ability to show extra wide content with no horizontal black bars on the top and the bottom. But how exactly do you do that unless you're squishing things, again, anamorphically, and this is built for lens systems? I kind of have the gut feeling that they didn't go all the way to worrying about anamorphic and lens geometries and all of that, but it has to do more about packaging the information in the field. Maybe it actually changes the output resolution in some way, but it's still going to be a scope imagery essentially inside that 3840 by 2160 resolution field. And again, all we really needed them to do is continue showing content the way they have, but put the menus in the scope window basically inside the 16:9 field, and then we could zoom it up on our projectors and everything would work fine. Kaleidoscape has it, of course. They have an ultra widescreen scope menu setting, and it works fantastic. So very eager to get my hands on this one for sure. I did read a couple of folks, the phase one, the first release developer beta is available. I usually don't play around with the earliest developer betas. I usually wait at least until the public betas, which we'll probably see maybe in a couple weeks, perhaps into July. But I've seen reference that the 21:9 feature wasn't even in the first developer beta that was pushed and available. So stay tuned, rest assured, as soon as I get my hands on it, I will make the content about it as well. The rest of the stuff is basically odds and ends. We have the portrait screensavers. Yeah, that's pretty cool, I guess. FaceTime calls with auto-generated captions. I'm presuming that the generation of subtitles and captions for the live FaceTime calls is probably also the same processing in algorithmic tech that's driving the generation of subtitles when we're watching content. So the Apple TV has to be listening to what's being said and then generating the text immediately thereafter to be able to put it on the screen. That's pretty cool, and it's probably all, again, based on Apple AI algorithms and ultra cool software development features and processing. So pretty neat overall. And then they mentioned some redesign of the Apple Fitness Plus stuff. I've never really used the Apple Fitness Plus. I do have my tonal on its way. I'm very eager to get my muscles onto the tonal, but if that's something that you use and it comes with some better interaction, better usability, and more features, kudos to you, and congrats for that, I guess. No new hardware, of course, no new hardware at all, really, when it came to WWDC. I think by the time they talked about all of the OS upgrades and the platform upgrades and stuff like that, and then did the whole segment on the Apple Intelligence type features and those capabilities, they're already filling up time. There wasn't really room to start talking about hardware, let alone perhaps maybe not having anything specific to announce or release anyway. So we wait now. The next likely opportunity to potentially see some type of new Apple TV hardware, in my opinion, would be October-ish. We'll get new iPhones around September. There usually is another hardware event following that before the holiday time starts, and I think that would be the next likely time that we might see a new Apple TV revision. As it is, again, I think, as always, the Apple TV is the best streamer, the best general media consumption and input one device for your entertainment system. In general, still love the Kaleidoscape for movies and high quality stuff, specifically in the theater, but the Apple TV remains the thing that we use the most, and I think above Roku, above the Shield, and other competitors, I think it's the best, particularly if you're in the Apple ecosystem already. It really is a no-brainer. Happy to see it talked about. There has been WWDCs in the past where tvOS didn't even make the stage, didn't even make the presentation. There were just some slides and announcements about capabilities coming that were released after. So it remains at an elevated level of importance to Apple to invest in tvOS. I think that's great. Tons of potential, and I'm looking forward to see what they may do in the future. Again, we didn't get the lossless streaming. We didn't get any mentions that I've seen about more advanced profile management. That would have been, I think, a killer feature, especially tying profiles on the device to profiles in the apps. There's other things, of course, that they could have done. This is what they chose to do, and so be it. I look forward to playing with it, and again, I'll be here with content as soon as I get my hands on the new features on my specific Apple TVs. So sound off in the comments. Did you watch the keynote? What are you excited about of the Apple tvOS specific items? What are you looking forward to the most? How exactly do you think this 21.9 projector mode, they specifically called it projector mode, how do you think that's actually going to work out? What do you think it's going to do? Sound off in the comments. Let's discuss and have some fun. If you'd like to support the channel, you like these videos, a bunch of ways to do that down in the descriptions. Buy your Kaleidoscape from me. I'm a certified authorized dealer. Get the rest of your AV stuff from Audio Advice and my other channel partners. Reach out to me if you need help putting something together or setting something up. And I have all my general affiliates: Amazon, Best Buy, Newegg, Adorama, Crutchfield, too many to name. They're all down there in the description. Otherwise, please do the regular YouTube stuff, of course. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share the video, all those things. Leave a comment. Come on back for more home theater discussion and fun. Thanks.